Welcome. You're listening to Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki. This is the place where witty, irreverent, opinionated perspective meets serious, fact-based discussion. Featuring our host, Dr. Nikki Coleman, and her co-host, Tomas Bell. You can also join in the discussion during our live tapings by following us on Spreaker.com. Now, the doctor is in. It's time to get Doopy Deep.
Hello, and welcome everybody back to Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki and my co-host who's never ready. So this is the game that we play. I always think about who might be ready for the first time, and he ready. It's always a surprise every time, a joyful surprise, a very joyful surprise. We are so excited today. I'm excited. We're going to do a podcast, but it also will probably be a little bit of like a quasi support group. Today, we are going to be talking about hashtag working mamas. And this is a topic and a conversation that I think is so important to have. It's near and dear to my heart. And I want to talk about the experience of being a professional working mother. And I'm specific in using that term mother because I think there's a lot of gender that comes along with mothering that can't be left out of the conversation when we talk about the unique experiences of women who work and who are also parents. So I'm using this term working mamas on purpose. And I'm excited because I have two guests with me on the podcast. We know each other through kind of intersecting work and social circles. I can't even get it. Social circles is the word I want to say. And these are things that we are all kind of intimately passionate about and talk about all the time. And knowing the statistics that I know about how many working mothers there are out in the world, I felt like it was important to have a broader conversation and share this conversation through the podcast. So I want to welcome my guests. I have Ayanna McCloud, who I know through our work at the University of Houston, and she is also a working mama as well. Her son and my daughter are part of a play group and support network, and they are around the same age. And then I also have Dr. Eliza Farfan-Santos. I love saying your name. Who's I also know through the University of Houston. She's assistant professor in the cultural. Oh, I'm not going to get it right. Comparative cultural studies, right? Did I get it right?
That's right.
Yes. And she has a young son as well. So what I'll do now is let the ladies talk a little bit about themselves and have them introduce themselves. And then we're going to start the conversation about being a hashtag working mama. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Ayanna.
Okay.
So I am I'm born in Houston and kind of native Houstonian, left and kind of traveled around and came back, as many people do. I am also a writer and artist, a third-generation artist. Kind of professionally, what I do is lead kind of arts, cultural, and institutional planning. So I do like a lot of fundraising and grants management and kind of developing policy and planning around arts and culture and identity-based programs. And I am currently at U of H at the Women's Gender Sexuality Studies program, leading outreach and kind of communication strategies there and fundraising. And I have a 6-year-old son. His name is Zahir, which means light and radiance. And I'm happy to be on the podcast, too. I love this podcast and been following both of you guys for quite some time.
Thank you. All right, Eliza.
That's really awesome to hear, Ayanna. I feel like I've been wanting to really meet you, so I'm glad to be on this show with you, and also glad to be on the show. I have a 7-year-old son. His name is Oliver. We call him Ollie for short. It means olive tree, which is kind of awesome because he actually loves olives. He's he's kind of a crazy, quirky guy that fills up our lives. I am also a faculty member at U of H in the Comparative Cultural Studies Department. I teach anthropology. I'm a medical anthropologist. I'm pretty passionate about medical anthropology. I'm passionate about questions of the body, health, and healing, and that's kind of what I write about. But I also write about a lot about race and racial identity formations. So it's a fundamental aspect of my life and what makes up my body and my health and my sense of being. So I'm really interested in bringing those things together as a faculty member.
Awesome. I will just add that I have been working at the University of Houston this is my 13th year, and I've gotten to know both Ayanna and Eliza in probably the past 2 years, maybe a little bit more. And I think I have different relationships with each of them, but there's so many themes that thread across our conversations and our connections. And one of which is that I just want to really give a shout out to all of our babies, because our kids are also pretty awesome and phenomenal. And so they're their own they're their own people, and I know parents say that, but I feel like these kids are like strongly their own people. They're very clear about who they are in the world and how they show up. And I think that's also a part of, I think part of it is a reflection of us as moms. So I want to give us our props, right? Some of it is DNA, but also some of it is how we socialize and structure our relationship with them. And it also, I think, adds a layer to our individual experiences around mothering, right? Like our kids are not kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of go with the flow, just, kids, they can be laid back in different ways, but they are all very clear about what they want their lives to look like. And part of our experiences with them is negotiating that, right? Which I think has to be a part of the conversation. So I wanted to add that piece. So I guess I just want to hear. So here's the thing. We are all busy, right? And so I have text message thread that goes with Ayanna, and then there's another mom sometimes, and we're on a group message. And then I have text message threads with Eliza. And sometimes I want to share with both of you right now, like it's like we're all in the same vortex, right? Like sometimes the text is, girl, let me tell you what such and such did, right? Or now I got to go up to the school because blah, 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 right? And so I want to hear from you guys about what in the thinking like as broad in scope as possible. What for you are the biggest challenges as being working mothers? How do those pieces fit together for you? Sometimes don't fit together. What are the challenges?
I guess I'll start on this one. One of the biggest challenge for me, I think, is the pace of the business world. And it's a challenge in different ways, right? It feels like you're always doing a lot and yet never keeping up, right? And, one of the things that we've talked about is that there's a lot of, or we've talked about individually, is that the women generally, we carry the majority of the responsibilities in all aspects of social life. So it's at home and at work and in everything. And so, but work life, we live in a culture that is a neoliberal, capitalist, capital-driven culture, and everything is in the service of capital and production. And it feels like every year, every minute, the pace gets faster. For me, the challenge is that, I feel like as a woman, I've carried so much responsibility in my life that I've become very resilient to that pace, and I've sort of internalized it, and so I speed up with it. And for the most part, I can keep up. I feel like I'm very successful in that for the most part. But then the challenge becomes slowing down, right? And making time, and along those lines, making time for myself. So, I can do what I need to do at work. I can get my kid to school on time in the morning, do my work duties, pick up my kid from school, come home and make dinner, do bedtime routine, right? Y'all know all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can get it done, but, and a lot of other things in between. And then I'm absolutely exhausted at the end of the day. And if I have time to do something for myself, it feels like it's an effort, right? It's an extra effort sometimes. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's not that I don't think it's valuable. It's just that there's so many other things that need to be done. And so it's that pace that I feel like, I've gotten used to. And then, now I've really been working on slowing down, and I realize I have no idea what that, really looks like, because, even with self-care or trying to, introduce exercise or things like that, I feel like I'm still maintaining the same speed. I'm never really slowing down. So I think that's the hardest. I also wanted to say that it's challenging in academia because you always feel like you're missing out on something, right? So, you're either missing out on something at work or you're missing out on something at home. A lot of stuff in academia happens after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So and on weekends, and so there's conferences, there's talks, there are meetings, that folks want to do after 5, and and so you either have to be a part of it or you make the choice not to be a part of it. So either way, you're missing out on something, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, it's an active choice. What am I going to choose to quote unquote miss out on? What's more valuable to me? What's more important to me? And I feel like we talk a lot about balance, right, as being a working mom, but nobody tells you what balance means.
Right.
So we're all like chasing balance.
Yeah.
And then this is like one more thing we torment ourselves about not being good enough at, not good enough at being balanced.
Yeah.
But for me, it's
I've come to really just hate the term work-life balance. I'm like, don't even say that word to me, because it's a lie.
It's relative. I mean, to me, it's just relative. It's based on, everybody has their own journey and what you value the most in your life, right? Yeah. So for me, balance is about where are you grounded? What do you value the most, right? And then it's trying to make the most time to be in that space, right? Because
let's hear what Ayanna has to say.
Yeah, and I would say too, that whole work-life balance. Some of us have more of an ease in that, if you think about race and gender too, it's and also two-person household. I mean, for me as a single mom, I don't even use the word work-life balance. Yeah. I also kind of have a similar kind of issue with it, but I agree. I think it is also pacing for me. It's definitely kind of centered around pacing and time, as it is with most moms and working mothers. I think I'll add another thing, which is the finances and the money part. I think just kind of how expensive it is to raise a child and in a rich kind of a way, and not necessarily rich money wise, but like creating these rich experiences and with limited resources, having just, I think that for me, that's kind of a big thing to kind of juggle, is the kind of money time thing.
Yeah.
And I think also what I have been trying to vocalize or kind of give words to is the kind of frustration of like having little time to dream. And so that's really linked to the time thing of like just going and going and going, but like actually not having the space to dream as other people do and other friends and colleagues do. And so having the awareness that kind of deficit is in my life, and just kind of paying more attention to that and what that means for myself as a mother, and paying, and being, thinking about that self-care language, but also what that means for my son. What, how do we create spaces to dream and have magical thinking when we're going and going and going and going. So
absolutely.
I love that.
I wanted to add to that. I'm sorry. I wanted to add this, kind of that, that's really